Hi guys, thank you for joining us today. My name is Kafaya. I'm a community learning specialist at Do Space, and I will be facilitating this session today. How's everyone doing today? Well, just like you guys, I'm very excited about this session today, and I hope that everyone has as much fun as I am going to. Okay. So to continue or to pick up from where we left off last session, we worked with Scratch last week, and that's basically what we will be continuing today. Just that today we're building a different game from what we did last week. So for those of us that aren't familiar with Scratch, Scratch is a block-based visual programming language website that's targeted primarily at children to help them code. This is a great way to introduce yourself to the world of programming in general. And users of this site can create online projects, games, animations, and so much more using a block-like interface. So, in our last session, in the last class, we built the ball bounce games where we had the ball bounce at random positions on the screen, and every time you got to click on the ball, it would, that was not intentional, every time you clicked on the ball, it would give you a score. You would go up by 1 point. And we were also able to set a high score for our game. So every time you reached 10, your screen would switch to this celebratory screen that would congratulate you on winning the game. And this was left to everyone's creativity. You are free to come up with any kind of celebratory page. Your high score could be anything that you wanted it to be. It could be 1,000, it could be 100, it could be 1,000,000. It's your choice. And we also learned how to switch screens and switch backdrops in Scratch. So for today, we will be playing the Catch the Apple game, and this game consists of choosing two sprites, an apple and a ball. So the apple would fall from the tree, and the ball would be to catch the apple, just like it would typically go if you went to go pick apples right now, which is very right for this season because everyone's been picking apples lately. Okay, so every time that you position the ball on the falling apple, you get a score. You get a point. You go up by a point. So let's begin. Just a few more things before we start. For this game, we would be taking a step further from how we did last week. And we would be diving deeper into operators and using the sensing block. And we will be learning how to control the behavior of our sprites by giving conditions. Okay, hi Maddie Gibbs. You said it's your first time doing after school. Well, welcome. I hope that you learned something from us today. And feel free to ask me any questions that you have in the comments or in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer as much as I can. So for today's game, of course, I want everyone to go onto the Scratch website, which is scratch.mit.edu. That's where we'll be doing all of our work for today. So I'll give you a few minutes to get on to the scratch.mit.edu website. And while you do that, I will be showing you what our finished product for our game is going to look like. So right now, when I click on my green flag, I'm able to catch my apples, and every time that I do that, my score goes up by 1 point. See? And if there's a case where my apple doesn't fall into my bowl, then my game is over. See? Okay, so let's get started with creating our own game. So we saw how the game works, right? Very cool. So now we're going to make our own. So the first step is to create your own game. And right here at the top where it says Untitled, I'm going to go ahead and name my game Catch the Apple. So we're doing Catch the Apple game. Awesome. And once that's out of the way, the next step is to, as much as we love our friendly, happy Scratch the Cat, we don't need Scratch for this game. We don't need the cat for this game. So I'm going to go ahead and say bye-bye. And a way to delete your cat is to go up to the right corner, left, right, depending on what side you're looking at, and just click on the trash can and it will disappear. So for our first step, we need to create the scenery of where we're going to be catching our apples, right? So the first thing to do is to select the backdrop. And for any one of us that was here during our last lesson, in selecting a backdrop, you have two options. You can either scroll through the screen to look for something that's more favorable to your creativity or what you're looking for the day, or you can go ahead and just type it in if you know exactly what you're looking for. So the backdrop that I want to use for this game is called Tree. So I'm going to search for that, and Scratch with the website will narrow down based on your Scratch. It would narrow down everything that kind of has a tree in it or is related to a tree. So now I'm going to go ahead and click, and now my background is set. Awesome. So what two other things do I need in order to make my game what it is? I'm going to go in here to add a sprite or choose a sprite, and I'm going to go find my apple, which is right here at the top of the page. And secondly, I need my bowl. So for my bowl, I'll just search. Oops. I'm going to search for my bowl. And see, it narrowed it down to everything relating to a bowl. But for sure, I don't want a fish bowl. So I'm going to select the bowl. Another thing that I want us to catch right now is if you look at my screen and you look at the two sizes of my apple and my bowl, it's almost like my apple is bigger than my bowl. And if I'm catching my apple with the bowl, it makes sense that my apple is smaller than my bowl. So let's go ahead and alter the sizes of our sprites by a little bit. So for my apple, I'm going to take it down to 70, just so it's small enough but not too small. And for my bowl, and in order to work on each of the sprites, you have to click on them. And you see, if I click on my apple, at the top of my workspace right here, you would see my apple in the corner of the page. That way you know what you're maybe doing writing a program for, or just working on. And so I'm going to go ahead and increase the size of my bowl. Let me make it 140, so it's like twice the size of my apple. Awesome. So now we're all set. The sizes are more proportionate and it looks more reasonable. Cool. So now that we're done with choosing our sprites and all that fun stuff, we can go ahead and declare our variable just like we did the last time. So our next step is to go into our variables tab, click on make a variable, because right now there's no variable named score and we want a variable that's named score. So right now I would go in here and click on make a variable, and I'm going to go ahead and name my variable score just like we discussed. and click on OK. And we're all set. Right here you can see our score. Our game is coming together bit by bit. We just need the program to make it run, right? Cool. So now to start with our Apple. I'm going to go into my events tab. And what's that thing you do that makes that marks the sign that says go? Like what's the universal representation of go, like when you're driving or anything? Green, right? So when my green flag is clicked, I'm going to click on that and drag it into my workspace. So now when my green flag is clicked, because we know that different people are going to play our game at different times, and we want to have a way where we can refresh it. So every time that you start the game, you want it to start afresh for everyone, because you don't want someone picking up from where you stopped and just benefiting off of your hard work. So I'm going to go in here into my variables tab. And right here where it says set my variable to 0, I'm going to use the drop down option and select my score, since score is our variable for this game. And I'm going to click drag and place that right below my when the green flag is clicked. So every time we're unable to test this now, but if we maybe had our score go up, if maybe we've been able to program it where where each time the apple touches the ball, it goes up by 1 point. Every time we click on the green flag, it would refresh our game, and that would go back to 0. So that's why we have that there. So our next step right now is, okay, since we know that the apple will forever fall from the tree, we need to position our apple to the top of the tree, because if you're falling from the tree, you would start falling from up down. So what we're going to do is the same way we're resetting our score, we want to reset where our apple will always fall from. And in order to do that, we're going to need our X and Y block, which would be best for helping us position our sprite. So I'm going to go into my motions tab and look for a block that would direct the X and Y direction of my sprite. So right here where it says go to X at this and that, we can change that for sure. So now I'm going to put my X to be my negative 33. That would be somewhere at the top of my page. Where are you? Yes. See right here in the middle? That's where I want my apple to fall from. And how I got that is by, you can see my X and Y axis right here at the top. Right here, this is the score that I want, because this is exactly where I want my apple to fall from. And it's your choice, you can change it, you can choose to have yours at 5, but I prefer 33 or anything. So I'm going to just change this to negative 33. And for my Y, I'm going to leave it at 100 and let's see. Let's try 183. Right? Okay, now we're able to test it. Let me move my apple somewhere that's not the top, and let's see if we click on our green flag, if it's going to reflect the program that we just did. See? Awesome. So every time that I click on my green flag, it resets my game, and as you can see, this happens. So now we're all set. We know that when we start our game, our apple would always go to the top of the page before it gets to falling. Okay? So the next thing that we're going to do now is we're going to... Does anybody know what a loop is? In programming, a loop is something that repeats itself over and over again. And instead of having you write the same program a million times, you can just, if it's a group of action that's repetitive, all you have to do is put that group of action that you want to happen repetitively, just put it in a forever block, and that way you don't have to write the same thing over and over again. So like I said, regarding my forever block, I'm going to go in here, click, drag, and place it. And then now it begs the question of what do I want to happen every time that what do I want to be repetitive? I want my apple to fall from the tree, right? So in order to do that, I need to go into my Motions tab. And the first thing to decide is, how do I want my apple to fall? Do I want my apple to fall to the side or fall straight down? I want my apple to fall straight down, so we're going to program our apple towards that. So I'm going to go in here into my Motions tab and ask that my apple points in the direction that I want it to fall. So now I'm going to point it in the direction, and I'm also going to tell it to move. Because with programming, you have to be very specific about what you want your code to do. You have to make it... Okay, so let's test something out now. Now I have it pointed in direction 90. Does anybody know what direction 90 is? Well, let's see. Let's try to find out. Can you see? That's not what I want. It's going to the right. I don't want it to go this way. I want it to go down. So you see right here where we have direction for the apple, I'm going to first of all make sure that my apple always stays straight. And in order to do that, I would go here and click on the option that says do not rotate, because if I let it rotate, my apple will be turning and flipping every time it falls, but I don't want that. So now I'm going to go back here. Okay, I'm going to go back here, and since angle 90 is this way and I want my apple to fall down, I'm going to use this arrow to get the angle that perfectly describes the direction that I want my apple to fall. And I'm just going to turn and turn until I get to a point that I'm comfortable. Okay, so you see, point in the direction 180, that angle falls straight down. And that is exactly what I want from my apple. So now we're going to go ahead and test that out. Let's see. Now you can see every time I click on my green flag, it starts and my apple falls straight down, which is excellent, right? So when the green flag is clicked, my apple knows to fall from the tree. That is awesome. That's like steps ahead. We've made a lot of progress. Cool. If you're working with me, let me know if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to help. Okay? So now, the next thing we need to do is to program the game so that we can earn a point every time the apple touches the ball. So let's do that. In order to do that, this is where we introduce conditions. Remember how I talked about if and else conditions? And that's what we're going to be using in this. That's what we're introducing to this game that we didn't use last class. So now I'm going to go into my controls tab and look for a block that says if something is happening, then I want you to do this. And we know that every time that we touch our apple with our bowl, every time our apple touches our bowl, we want to get a point. So now I'm going to click on this if blank, then, and it goes into our forever loop because it's repetitive. You want to get a point every time that your apple touches your bowl. So that goes in our loop. So the next step is to give it the condition, right? If what? What is the condition? And the condition here is that if our apple touches our bowl, and this is where we introduce our sensing tab. Okay, so now we're going to look for the block of code that teaches us, that helps us solve the problem of like when our apple is touching the bowl. So I'm going to go here. If touching, I'm drop down menu and select my bowl. So if touching my bowl, then just like we discussed, we want to change our score by 1. So I'll go back into my variables tab and change my score by 1. And that is what happens when the condition of the apple touching the bowl is met. Does that sound good? Is everyone understanding me so far? Great. So now, the next step is to make sure that every time that, okay, let me see. I'll put my bowl here just for experimentation purposes. So right now, if I click on my flag, you see, it touches my bowl and it just touches it and just keeps going off. Like my score just keeps increasing. And that's not what we want, right? We want it to be repetitive. The game is a bit broken right now. So what we're going to do to fix it is to use the same block that we used at the start of our code to refresh the game. So I'm going to go, it's the same one that we need. So I'm going to go back to the motions tab and get my X and Y and put it in my loop so that it all comes together and that my apple knows to go back up. Because we're using the same apple, we want to program it to always, after you touch the ball, okay, give me the point, but go back and fall again. It's repetitive in the loop, right? Okay, let me change this to 183. Awesome. So now let's test it. You see? Why? See? It gives me the score. It keeps going back up. Okay. Now, we want to make sure that our game isn't easy, right? In a way, I want us to confuse our players. So to do that, we're going to go into our operators tab and look for something that would make our game unpredictable, so much that even us, we wouldn't know how to make this happen. We wouldn't know where our apple is going to fall from. So to do that, we're going to pick a random number and now in order to find what the two numbers should be, we would go to the top of our page. We'll take our apple and put it on the opposite ends of, sorry about that, we'll put it on the opposite ends of our screen just so that we can mark the numbers for where our apple should fall from. And then we would use those same numbers to mark our x and y axis to mark the two random positions that we want our ball to fall from. So right now I have negative 219, 218, and 220. Or let's just do, yeah. So I'll put the two numbers right here. So negative 218 to positive 218. Right? So now that is very random. And if I click on my flag, our ball just falls from a random position every time. Awesome. So, what do we do next? Okay, I'll stop that so that we can go back into, oh, I see. I forgot to set this one. So this should be 133. See? Every time I click on the green flag, my apple falls from a different part of the screen, and that's what we want. But the problem now is that we don't know how to move our ball, right? Our apple works correctly. Our apple falls from different parts of the screen, but we want to make sure that the same thing happens with our we want to make sure that the same thing happens with our bowl. Our apple works correctly now. But what about the bowl? I have to click on it and move it several ways before it works. Right? Let me give you some time to think about it. And I'm open to suggestions on how you think I can program my bowl to work how I showed you in the beginning. So let me know. Take a few seconds to think about that. I'll be right back. Oops. Hello. It's me again. So now it is time to figure out what we're going to do with our bowl, right? So if you've been testing your code so far, you've noticed that your apple picks a random position to fall from every time, which is great because that's what we want. However, when it doesn't touch the bowl, that's the end of the game, right? That's over. You kind of have to start from scratch. So, how do I program my bowl to move every time I maybe touch my trackball, my trackpad on my laptop, or move my mouse? How do I get my bowl to move? So remember to put code under your bowl. You're going to have to click on the bowl just to make sure you're writing your code in the right place. The first step is to choose something that's going to kickstart your game. And that for this program is when the green flag is clicked, right? So when the green flag is clicked, I want my bowl to do something over and over again. And what's that block that you use to tell your code, okay, repeat this action over and over again? And that is my forever block. And my forever block can be found in my control tab. And now I'm going to click, drag, and place it. The next step for me would be to tell my mouse what to do, right? How do I set? Now I've told my code that when my green flag is clicked, I want you to do something repetitively. But what's that thing that I want it to do repetitively? So I'm going to go into my motions tab and use the same block of code. It's very similar to what we did for our apple, but this time we're doing it towards our bull and our mouse. So I'm going to use the first block that tells me what direction to go, right? And right now, if I move my block of my, if I move my bowl, you can see that the code for my regarding my direction, it changes. Right here you can see X is 0, Y is 159. Okay, so we can just leave our y-axis at like negative 160 right here, because that's the bottom of our page. Let me just do that, negative 160. But regarding our x-axis, we want to make sure that it works with our bowl. So every time I move my mouse anywhere on the screen at the bottom, I want my bowl to follow. And in order to do that, we're going to go back here into the sensing tab, and right here, since we're using this to control our x value, we're going to click on the block that says mouse x, and we're replacing 140 with mouse x. Do you see? So let's test that out. Can you see? This is it. This is all that we wanted our code to do. Let me make it full screen so we can all play this together. Awesome. Can you see? We have successfully built our own version of catching the apple game. Oops, oops. I almost lost that there. See? Okay. And if my apple touches, that's the end of my game. So I'm going to stop it and go back. So if anyone has any questions, please let me know. We have successfully built our apple game. We started from nothing, and step after step, we have successfully built our catch the apple game. So if anyone has been working alongside me and you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or if maybe yours isn't working how you would like it to, please feel free to let me know. And I would also like to challenge you guys for before the next session. I want to see if any of you can do a small challenge for me. Can you try to program this game to switch the backdrop every time that the apple doesn't touch the bowl? So instead of like, hey, you win, maybe something like, bum, 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 you need to try again, right? So just explore, try to come up with something. And if you have anything cool enough that you think I should see, please feel free to email it to me at hello@dospace.org. I'll be very happy, very excited to see what you guys come up with. Okay? This has been fun. So let me go back here and start our game again. I'll just have some fun with this. But you guys feel free to let me know if you have any questions or comments. I'll pay close attention to the chat right now. So I'll be here to answer your questions, okay? But that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you for being here with me. I hope to see you in my next session, next class. Okay? Well, have a great day. Bye.